That's the only way the time prophecies were able to actually come into effect. There was no other way. Now, the question I need to ask for you is this. If somebody else came from the secular world and says, prove that, can you prove that? I know I have a few people on, but how many out there could say, yes, I can prove it directly from the Bible? And if you were to actually place that throughout the church, you'd have to ask yourself, how many people in the church could actually prove? Or did we just go with what the leading brethren told us, that it was just 360 days? And so we take that now and say we now have a day for a year and we continue on. That's a very, very important thing. So what we're going to do is that we're going to help you out this time. All right? And we're going to show you that everything that we need to understand the truth of God's Word is in the Bible. And it's in the most least likely place you'd want to look. So one of the first things we're going to do is that we're going to move you to the book of Genesis. And this will come around to dealing with the issue of the time prophecy and the issue of Ezekiel 9. Because the first thing we have to establish is prophecy going to be fulfilled all the time? Or is God just speaking out of one side of his mouth and he really is not meaning what he say he's going to do? Now, what I would like you to do, and I'm going to turn that, please excuse me for turning away from the screen here, is we're going to go to Genesis chapter 7, and we're going to see how this sort of works itself out. And we're going to start off in verse 4. And before we know that God called Noah and said to Noah, come into the ark, okay, bringing the animals in. And so they went in and they brought the animals, and they brought the 2 pairs of unclean and 7 pairs of clean. 2 pairs of unclean, 7 pairs of clean. And all through, as we were taking up little classes, we always say 2 pairs of clean, 2 pairs of each. But the Bible does not say that. The Bible says 2 pairs of unclean and 7 of the clean. So again, we go back to the Bible and we see what the Bible is stating in regards to this thing. Now, we're going to continue on. It says, for yet in 7 days I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And every living substance that I have made, I will destroy from off the face of the earth. And Noah did according to what the Lord had commanded. And now it says, and Noah, in verse 6, and Noah was 600 years old when the flood came upon the earth. Now, let's go down to verse 10. Verse 11, sorry. And verse 11 said, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month. So we're going to do this. Month. Month. 2. The 2nd month. And it continues on, and it says, on the 17th day. So the 17th day. And that's what we see, is the 2nd month, on the 17th day, okay, that God said that Noah entered into the ark. And the same day, the fountains of the great deep broke open, and the water and the windows of heaven were open. And so you have 2 things. You have the rain coming down, and you have the rain coming up. And so the whole earth flooded. And it says in verse 12, and the rain rained upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Now, most of us stopped there, and we haven't continued on. And it says here in the selfsame day that Noah entered, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his son, and with them into the ark. And we end. And we know that's when they enter the ark. But continue on. And it says here that in verse 24 of chapter 7, it says, and the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. So we know that the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. That's how long the waters prevailed upon the earth. 150 days. I want you to jump further on, okay? And I want you to go now to Genesis chapter 8. And this is going to be at the end of this flood. Okay, because what we're going to be able to do now is decipher something very, very important. Okay, so the water was prevailing 150 days. And it continues on and says, now, when did the water start returning from the face of the earth? It says the waters returned from the verse 3 of chapter 8. The waters returned from the earth, and continually afterward, end of 150 days, the waters were abated. So the end of the 150 days, the waters were abated. And it continues on, and it says here, and the ark rested, in verse 4. The ark rested when? On the 7th month, on the 17th day. Now, would it be so coincidental, or by chance, I should say, that it's the exact day, certain number of months away, happens to be the exact day in when it rested is the exact day when it, and the Bible makes clear references to this, and it's very important to see. Because what it's showing you is that God is very precise in his mathematical statements in order to make sure that when we came to our time today, that we were able to prove from the Bible a certain thing. And that's regards to the number of months there is in, number of days there is in a month, in order for us to compute an entire number of days within a year in order to be able to fulfill the 23rd prophecy and any other prophecies accordingly in the Bible. Now, let's do the math on this. It started on the month 7, month 2, on the 17th day, and ended on month 7, on the 17th day. Now the question is, how many days did the Bible say was between this point and this point? The Bible said there was 150 days according to Genesis chapter 7 verse 24, and it also said to Genesis chapter 8 verse 3. Now, if you have month 2 to month 7, how many months is between there is? Very simple. 2 from 7 equals what? 5. So in a space of 5 months, there was how many days? 150 days. Are you following me? So the fact that there's 150 days in 5 months, how many days does it take to make 150 days for 5 months? 5 times 30 equals 150. And that's how you prove directly from the Bible, without a doubt, that there's only 30 biblical days in 1 month. Okay? Now, are we all on that? Yes? Let me see one yes. Okay. 150 days. Why are we doing this? We're doing this because we're going to try to make a point later on in regards to God's prophecy. When God makes a prophecy, God does it. I am going to go back and we're going to start reading some things in regards to the Strong Concordance. Sorry about that. Strong Concordance. And Strong Concordance states the word covenant. The word covenant is an alliance, a pledge between men, treaty, alliance, league of man to man, constitution, ordinance, and monarch to subject, agreement, pledge, man to man. And it goes down and it says between God and man. Covenant, a divine audience with signs or pledge, it states. That's what a strong concordance gives in definition, and that's the biblical concordances for biblical references. Now let's see what Webster's dictionary, which is most known by everyone, what Webster's dictionary states. Webster's dictionary states, a binding and solemn agreement to do or keep from doing a specific thing. This is very, very important. This is Webster's dictionary. He says, a binding and a solemn agreement to do what? To do or keep from doing a specific thing. Not generalization. It's going to be a detailed, specific thing that he says he's going to do or he's not going to do. But it's binding. That means that there's no way out. When you bind something, there's no way out of it. Number two on Webster's dictionary states, a formal sealed contract. That means it's formal. It is organized. It is structured. It has aspect to it. I don't know if anybody has ever had a loan from a bank. Is very, very detailed. There's fine prints. There's this. Those are binding agreements. If you don't read those, you have no excuse. If something happens and the bank decides it wants to pull your house and you didn't read that, they go, oh, didn't you read that? Well, I didn't see that because that was in the fine prints. Well, that's still not an excuse because it was there. And so we can't go to law and says, well, the letters were smaller than the other letters. We have to go and say, well, Lord, Your Honor, it was there. I just didn't read it. And that's no excuse. Okay, ignorance is no excuse for the law. And so when we see here that is a sealed, formal sealed contract, we must be very, very careful to make sure we read this contract, whatever it is. So whatever God said he's going to do or not going to do, it is important we read every aspect, every letter of it, so we could see what will he do and what will he not do that he has promised us. Because why? He's not going to change from what he said he's going to do or not going to do. Number 3 says, a promise, and this is Webster's dictionary. Listen to this. A promise made by God to man, as recorded in the Bible. That's interesting. Webster's dictionary, which is a world-known dictionary, and it's used secular uses for those Christian and non-Christian, mostly by non-Christian, states that it is a solemn, a promise made by God to man, as recorded in the Bible. And let's continue on as we go down. Now, what we're going to do is that I'm going to read out certain aspect, and this may go fast because just for time's sake. Genesis 9:11-17, Noah and the rainbow. Genesis 15:18, Abraham's promised land. These are some of the promises of God. Genesis 17:2-21, Abraham's promised nation. Exodus 6:4-5, Israel delivery from slavery. Exodus 31:16-18, the Sabbath. Exodus 34:27-28, the Ten Commandments. Leviticus 26:42-46, God promised to Jacob. And I'm going to just go down and just read some of the promises without giving the biblical references here. Those we could always receive whenever you decide to ask for them later on. Like I said, for time, God will scatter Israel. God will not forget. God won't break a promise, and that one you must see Deuteronomy 31:20. God will never break promises, Judges 2:1. God will always remember. God promised to David. God keeps his promises, Nehemiah 1:5 and 9:32. Psalms 25:10, God keeps his promises. Covenant for his chosen. Please mark this. Psalms 89:2-4. Psalms 89:2-4, covenant for his chosen. Abraham's promise. God always remember, God will remember, promised to David, Israel to be a light